Welcome to New Independence. It is Monday, August 1st, the birthday of MTV. A very monumental moment in my life, I thought, until it turned into a bunch of liberal claptrap and garbage. Back when I used to play music, it was a lot more fun. Anyway, we had a very interesting turn of events over the weekend, starting with the Democrat National Convention. Khazir Khan. He's been the talk of the town as of late. The new cause celeb for the liberals, Khazir Khan. We all know who Khazir Khan is. He was the Gold Star parent, the Muslim Pakistani who took the stage at the Democrat National Convention, and he attacked Donald Trump in a very powerful speech, as everyone said. It's so powerful. The media, the media are loving Khazir Khan, loving him. They are lauding all over him today. All weekend has been a talk of the news circuit all weekend. Why? Well, here's why. A little background on Khazir Khan if you don't know by now. In 2005, this is 2005 now, his son was serving in Iraq. He was killed by a car bomb. He was manning the gates, checking vehicles as they came in, and a taxi came racing toward the gate. He rushed, according to reports, to stop it. Held his hand out, I guess. I don't know why he didn't shoot it. See, as a veteran myself, if you have a car racing toward the gate and it's not stopping, you shoot it. I'm just saying. I don't know why he would just put his hand out. Maybe that was his first step. I wasn't there. But your protocol is tell it to stop. It doesn't stop, you shoot it. However, it had a car bomb. It blew up. Or it was a car bomb. It blew up. And it killed him. So that was in 2005. All of a sudden, here comes Khazir Khan. And he's at the DNC and he's talking about his son and talking against Donald Trump, which I found interesting. The only time we ever heard from Khazir Khan was a very brief article back in 2005. And the article was in the Washington Post. It was a story published March 22nd, 2005. You can look for it. They've relinked to the story on the Washington Post because, of course, they want to use that against the Republicans and Donald Trump as much as they possibly can. And that's the only time we heard about it. It was a little side story. It was another father whose child was killed. And all they talk about is the father. They don't talk about the mother at all. The mother doesn't speak. Yeah, okay, she was probably grieving too much. He's maybe the stronger person of the two. I also do know that Muslim wives are not usually allowed to speak based on Sharia. I'm just saying. They're usually not the ones. The husbands are the ones who speak. The husbands walk in front of them. Just saying. He's a spokesman, okay? So he's talking. Regardless, he's the guy, right? It doesn't matter. He's the guy. So he was the spokesperson for his son, and he told the story to the Washington Post. And it was a general story about my son was killed, and the loss is big. It was basically a hero story, a story about what a kid did and what kind of person he was, and another one of those throwaway stories that the liberal press, the DNC propaganda media, love to put out there. Hey, here's a story, nice little story about the soldiers who die. Here's one, and there's a lot of them that do, but we'll just this one's a Muslim, so we got to use him. See, now we're getting to the gist of it. The liberals love to use, and Democrats love to use minorities. Love it. They love it. And they love using, there's an example of a minority, a Muslim. Hey, we have a Muslim. We could tell a story about his kid dying. This is all before the whole immigration brouhaha, which really should have been a big issue after 9/11. It really should have. But it wasn't. Really, Trump brought that to the forefront when he started running, and it should have been brought to the forefront a long, long time ago. And not just for Muslims, just for anybody who we should have shut it down. Should shut down immigration in this country for a while. They've done it before. 1924 to 1965, immigration had been shut down in this country to allow all of the immigrants who came over from Europe at the start of after World War One and the start and World War Two and whatnot, and allow them time to assimilate into our culture, into American culture. They bring their cultures with them, but they learn how to be Americans. That's a very big difference. So, anyway, that wasn't talked about. Immigration wasn't a thing, but they did talk about this Muslim. So it's a good story, interesting story. Nothing really heroic and amazing about it. It was a guy who was working a gate, and a taxi cab came driving toward him, and the car bomb blew up. I'm not taking anything away from the man who served. Again, like I said, I've served myself. But I have to say, it's one of many. There are hundreds of stories like that of people getting blown up by IEDs and car bombs and snipers and whatever the issue is. Media doesn't cover those. Okay? So they had their little pawn that they wanted to use, their minority pawn. And it was like, oh, look at the interesting story we have here. It's a Muslim who was actually fighting for this country. And the worms started to turn around then, too, if you keep in mind, because Obama was hitting the market in a couple of years. We already knew he was in the forefront. We already pretty much knew he was a Muslim, or had been. And the worm starts turning. Now we're saying Muslims aren't so bad, and we got to look at the sacrifice. Either way, fast forward to the DNC. Here comes Khazir Khan. Last we've heard of him was 11 years ago in the Washington Post. Never a peep. Comes out on stage and he scathes Donald Trump about immigration. If your immigration policies were in place, my son wouldn't have been able to serve in the military. Yeah, and your son would be alive today. But it doesn't mean your son wouldn't be able to serve. It means that we'd allow only certain people in this country to serve if their background checks out, if they're clear. That's how the immigration system started from 1924 to 1965. It was a ban on it, but there was actual certain people of certain types, if they passed, and they were very high quality, high caliber people who can contribute to this country, not just any refugee being dumped in here because they want to run away from the problems in their country instead of trying to fight them. Okay? And among those refugees, you have Muslims. And I don't have a problem with Muslims. I have a problem with terrorist Muslims. And when you have a terrorist, and they're even saying they're embedding terrorists in with the refugees, then you have a problem. If you've seen Batman versus Superman, Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck, says in the movie, if there is a 1% chance of him being dangerous, we have to consider that an absolute certainty. That's accurate. If there's a 1% chance of a Muslim refugee who is radicalized being in among the refugees that come into this country, a 1% chance, then we have to take it as a certainty that any of them can be dangerous. That's just a fact. You have to protect your borders. I mean, we're going to start a movement. I'm going to start a little movement if I can. I don't know how many legs it's going to take up, but we'll talk about that later. I have a little movement coming, and I'll cover that in another little podcast that I think would be very important for this country. So let's get back to the topic. Khazir Khan, again, says, if it was up to us, my son wouldn't be here, and your son would be alive. Just to give you that. I mean, you are living in the best country in the world, and you came here for a reason. I got you. I understand that. But, not taking anything away from the son sacrifice, but that's just, hey, look, that's the realism of war. People die. I know people who have died in war. It happens. It's terrible. It sucks, but I feel terrible for their families, but it is what it is. There's no way to change it once it's happened. But Khan gets onto the stage at the DNC and rants and raves and loses his mind about this. He wasn't freaking out, but he was very adamant against Trump. I had to scratch my head. I let it process. Knee-jerk reaction is, well, you can go after it. You got to let it process. And I stopped and went, something doesn't feel right about this. I looked into it and I went, this reminds me of somebody. Who does this remind me of? It reminds me of somebody, and then it popped into my head over the weekend. Cindy Sheehan. Do you remember Cindy Sheehan? Cindy Sheehan was a Gold Star mother whose son died in a firefight in Iraq. It was during the Persian Gulf War. It was about midway through his presidency, maybe 2006, coming up on election time. Getting close to it. I forget the exact year. But Cindy Sheehan, it was 05. So around the same time as Khazir Khan. Hey, how about that? Khazir Khan's interviewed by the Washington Post in 2005. Cindy Sheehan, another Gold Star parent, is taking the forefront as the face of the grieving mother. Khazir Khan just had a basic story about his son dying. Cindy Sheehan's story was about her son dying, but she took it one step further. She was adamantly anti-Bush, calling Bush a war criminal. She was parading around, and the Democrats were loving it. They were using her all the time, as much as they possibly could. Cindy Sheehan was a pawn of the Democrat Party. This is what they do. Democratic Party. This is what they do. They take a person who's grieving. They don't care about the military. They don't. They pretend like they do, but I served under Clinton. I was in under Clinton. I was in under Reagan. I was in under H.W. Bush. I was in under Clinton, and I was in under George W. Bush. And it was night and day between Reagan, H.W. Bush, and Clinton, and W. Bush. It was night and day. When I served under Clinton, most of my time served was under Clinton, I had soldiers who had to live on food stamps because their salaries were so low they couldn't feed themselves. Even if they were enlisted and had meals in the mess hall, they still had to get, if they had families, they had to get food stamps. Soldiers who were enlisted, who lived in barracks, had to take second jobs. So you had soldiers with families who had to get food stamps because their pay wasn't adequate enough for them to support their families. You had other soldiers who, one of my soldiers came up to me while I was working, and he said, "Sir," he said, I have to get off work. Can I get off duty now and leave a little early?" I said, "Off duty?" He said, "What's going on?" He went, "Sir, I have to get my new job." I said, "Your job? This is your job." He says, "No, sir, I have a job at J.C. Penney." I went, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, go do your job." And he went and did his job. He had to get a job at J.C. Penney to afford to pay his bills. And he lived in barracks. And he had military food and military medicine. Everything was covered. But he couldn't afford to pay his bills because his pay wasn't adequate enough. I had soldiers who lived in barracks who had holes in the ceilings of their barracks or holes in the screens where the mosquitoes, it was a very heavily mosquito-infested area, as out in Hawaii, as a matter of fact. And the mosquitoes would be flying. They had to put up tarp of their own to cover those holes because we didn't have the money in the budget to fix that stuff. We just didn't. It took a long time to get it because there's a lot of upkeep that goes on, and we got them fixed. But the bigger stuff, the bigger structural things, they took a long time to get fixed. There were a lot of issues. We had to cancel training. We usually have about 2 or 3 training exercises, big training exercises every year. One of them was always in August. We had to cancel training of my 3.5 years that I was stationed in Hawaii. We canceled training 2 of those years. 2 of those years, we couldn't do August training because there was no money in the budget. That's how bad it was. And there was a lot more, but I'm just touching on a few things that I saw firsthand. So Clinton didn't care. What he did to us in the military was he turned us into a social experiment, which is what they're doing now, what Obama and the liberals are doing now. He said, okay, we're going to have you learn consideration for others training. I mean, seriously, we had this training. Consideration for others. We went to a room with a bunch of other officers, and a major stood in front of us and said, there's a certain tone you have to use when you talk to people. You can't yell at soldiers. You can't bark at them. You have to talk to them, explain things to them. And I stood up and I said, sir, I have a question. He said, yeah. I said, if you're in a firefight and you're trying to order your people up a hill, what works better? Move your ass up the hill, or please move efficiently and expeditiously up that hill, if you wouldn't mind. And the room laughed, and he kind of had the look on his face, because you knew he was teaching BS. It was all a bunch of BS. He didn't believe, well, he just had to do it because he was required to do so. They also were teaching us peacekeeping operations. They were the Army. Our job is to fight. That's our job. Our job is to fight. Our job is not to do peacekeeping. That's the UN's job. But Clinton was teaching us to be members of the UN. Really, he was. He was trying to make us an extension of the UN, which is the same thing that Obama is trying to do. He's trying to put the UN in control of our military for the most part. And it was pointless. It was pointless to deal with. We shouldn't have to deal with a lot of that crap. I mean, some of the stuff, we modify the training. You know, this is what we want you to learn. Well, we modified that to serve our purposes better. This is what happens. The morons upstairs give us an order that's ridiculous, and we go, okay, let's retranslate that and repurpose that to what we really can use it for. So we did, and it helps in terms of learning how to deal with local farmers if you have to, take their land if you're in another country, and then they come over and they try to plant bombs or leaving serious packages or terrorist attacks. And we were able to modify that for our purposes. But the fact of the matter is that Clinton's objective was totally different because he has no clue. Democrats don't have a clue. They use the military for their own purposes all the time. All the time. And it's not for the right purposes. It's for their purposes. Now we have transgenders being forced to be put in the military. And they're trying to use the Constitution. Oh, in the Constitution, we defend everybody, so we have to have transgenders. I'm not even going to open that one. I can go on. I could talk for an hour about that issue. It's not a smart issue to have at all. It's a big problem. The military is not a social experiment. It's not. It's designed to do one thing, and that's the thing. That's one thing. That's it. One job. Attack. That's the job of the military. Period. All this training and stuff, that's a UN type thing. It should be a UN type thing. But I digress. So, Democrats don't care about the military unless it serves their purposes. Now, here's Khazir Khan being used in 2005. A little side story, they're planting the seed. Amazing how, we had a little story about him in the Washington Post. So, hey, here's an idea. Why don't we go after this guy who was a Muslim? And we'll deal with him. Yeah, we can get this guy. Remember that guy? Washington Post wrote a story about him. And I'm sure the Post contacted the DNC and said, I got a guy. We wrote a story about him. Remember him? Oh, yeah, that's interesting. We should talk to him again. And he's Muslim. So it's perfect because Trump is, we can, anti-Muslim. We can get, okay. Then you had Cindy Sheehan. They didn't care about anybody else. There's so many other families who have lost children. So many other Gold Star parents out there. Gold Star mothers, Gold Star fathers, siblings, whoever else who have lost loved ones to war. Where are they? Nah, the Democrats only want to pick the ones who hate Republicans. That's who they want to pick. They ignore everybody else, but they only pick the ones that serve their purpose. Now, you could say, well, the Republicans are doing the same thing. They're only picking people who hate Democrats. Most of your military hates Democrats. Most of them do. It's not hard. I could throw a rock and hit somebody that in the military that hates Democrats. It's like 64% support Trump. The majority of them couldn't stand Clinton when he was the commander-in-chief before, when I was in there. So it's not a big stretch. But Democrats love to use people. Let's keep this in mind. This is going to be a recurring theme that I touch on a lot when I'm talking. Democrats use people. If you are a minority, if you are black, if you are a Hispanic or Latino, if you are a Muslim now, if you're gay or LGBT or whatever you are, and if you're a woman, they will use you as much as they possibly can. And then when they're done using you, they will cast you aside like garbage. Example. And I have a lot of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. Sandra Fluck. Remember Sandra Fluck during the last election? Sandra Fluck, she was the big cause celeb, the big 15 minutes of fame with the Democratic Party in the 2012 election. They paraded her around because she wanted free birth control. Free. She wanted to have sex as much as she possibly could. I want to have sex as much as possible. I need that. Based on the numbers of the amount of money she needed, she had to be having sex basically, I think it was a matter of every day. I did the math on this a long time ago. If I find it, I'll share it. She had to have sex based on the cost of contraception. She had to have sex every day for at least 8 hours to 12 hours a day to use that many condoms or that much contraception. It's pretty disgraceful, but they were parading her around because she wanted to have sex and have it paid for. She wanted to have a lot of sex. Well, it was ridiculous. It was all part of the war on women. Remember that war on women, which has faded. Amazingly, the war on women has faded since Bill Clinton is the war on women. I don't hear that talk anymore. That ship has sailed. Where's the war on women? Oh, well, the Republicans, they have a defense against it now because Bill Clinton is a rapist and an assaulter. He assaults women and he hates women. He's a misogynist. So we have to, we can't use that now because, you can't use that. Bill is he's abused women, assaulted women, so they can't say war on women anymore. But they started it, and I remember when it happened. It was during one of the debates, and it was a Republican debate. And George Stephanopoulos, puppet for the little Muppet Stephanopoulos, he was moderating the debate, and he asked a question out of the blue of Mitt Romney, and he said, "What do you feel about should the states, should the government pay for birth control, or should it be up to the states?" Mitt Romney looked perplexed. He said, what's this? Where is this coming from?" It was totally out of left field. It had nothing to do with the topics that they had been discussing. Nothing to do with it. It was totally just thrown in there. And if Mitt Romney were a different type of person, if it were me, I would have said, what does that question have to do with anything? Let's go back to the topic at hand. What does that have to do with anything? Oh, well, it's a topic. No, you're changing the topic. Let's go to stick with the right topics, because you're just trying to change things. But they wouldn't do that. They played the game. This is the problem with Republicans have had, especially with the DNC propaganda media. They play the game. They try to do the right thing. We have to answer the questions because they've asked the questions. No, you don't. You don't have to answer the questions that they ask. They're asking you questions because they're trying to trap you and pull you into a corner, and that's what they did with Romney. Romney was trapped with that question. Now, what did he do? Well, he said, up to the states. Well, that just planted the seed. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, contraception, women's rights, war on women, Republicans don't want women to have, and then here comes Sandra Fluck. And they parade her out there, and they used her. And I remember she would go to shopping malls to have her little rallies, and 6 people would show up. It was pathetic. But they used her. And now where's Sandra Fluck? I have no idea. Couldn't tell you today. Well, I have to ask the same question. Cindy Sheehan, in 2005, she was being used. She was being used by the Democrats. They loved it. She was setting up a camp outside of George Bush's ranch. He used to go to his ranch in Texas quite often. He worked out of there. She set up a camp And the media was there, and they were filming her, and they were doing everything they possibly could to put out the optics. She represented all of the parents, and they all hated Bush, and they used this woman. And this woman was, first off, she lost her son. Okay, so she's already got a major emotional upheaval in her life. They used this woman, and they kept using her, and she became totally unhinged. She's already, like, you lose your kid, you can't even fathom it. You can't even fathom, because you're never the same. My father's brother died after World War II as a result of wounds from the war. And my father would tell me his parents were never the same. My grandparents were never the same after their oldest son died. It takes something out of you. It empties your life. And you can't put that piece back in the puzzle. And it's very, very difficult. And everyone handles it a bit differently. But instead of allowing people just to grieve normally, Democrats will find the one that they love, and they will use that one. And they used Cindy Sheehan because she was supporting their cause. And they're going and talking to her. You got to get out there and talk. This is, how could they do this to you? They send some flunky out there or someone who's a mid-level person and says, you have to talk about this. You have to tell your story because this is important. We can't have this happening to other mothers and children. We can't. It's just horrible. And you need to be the voice. And you got a woman who's at her weakest point. Anybody who's at their weakest point and they go, yeah, I have to be that voice. I do. Yeah, we'll give you the platform, and we'll give you accommodations, and we'll travel you, we'll move you around, and we'll take you up on stage, and she gets the fame and the adoration, and she gets attention, and she thinks she's doing something good for the memory of her son, when all she's doing is helping the Democrats in their cause, their anti-war, anti-Republican cause. Really anti-Republican. This time it was anti-Bush. They're helping them win an election, or she's helping them win an election. And she's making other military mothers look bad. She's making it seem like they're all anti-Bush or anti-war or anti-Republican. That's not the case. There's a lot of parents out there, the vast majority of them, who, when their children die, as painful as it is, they understand the sacrifice that their child made. Their child decided to do this. See, you're not forced to fight in the military or to serve in the military. You're not forced. I wasn't forced. I chose to do it. And I had a number of options. I could have gotten out a million times. I had ways out of it. I was like, if I had my choice, I could have said, nah, I don't want to do it. But time and again, I kept saying, no, it's what I want to do. And I went in and I became an officer. And I served. I was enlisted for a little while before that, about a year. And I took that route to become an officer. And I did it. That's our choice. We're not drafted. We're not forced to do this. Oh, but you're forced to fight. These people, they don't send their kids over to fight. Look, someone's got to fight, man. Someone's got to fight. It's very simple. You don't have to go in. You don't have to fight. You don't have to serve in the military. You can say you're a conscientious objector. You just don't have to serve. Period. It's not like these people in Congress, these business people. It's not like their kids couldn't just turn around and say, I want to serve, because they could. It's not like they're being drafted or they're keeping their kids out of the draft. It's your choice. It was my decision to do that. Everyone who serves, it's their decision. And you understand why you're there. Most soldiers do. Most military members do. You understand why you're there. There is a reason for you being there, and there is a chance that you have to go to war, and you're training for that all the time. It's not like, all of a sudden, boop, there's war, and we're not prepared. No, that's what we train for all the time. all the time. If you're not out there in the field training combat operations, you're in the rear training or making sure that your stuff is functional for combat operations. Or you're going to classes to learn more. You're educating your soldiers so they can learn more. This is what you do all the time. And some guys just love it. They're trained to fight. They want to fight. Your Special Forces, your Marines. There's certain people who just 101st Airborne, 82nd Airborne. These guys just want to fight. That's what they love. Some people love it. And there's other branches in the military too. You don't have to be an active or a combat arms. You can be non-combat arms. You can go quartermaster, you can go finance, you can go JAG. I don't understand why Khan's kid was wanted to be a lawyer and he was why didn't he go JAG? What is he doing guarding a gate? And I don't understand that. I have to look more into his background, but I don't get it. If he was a lawyer, if he was trying to be a lawyer and studying to be a lawyer, why wasn't he just doing JAG? Judge Advocate General for the layperson. Why wasn't he doing that? I don't understand. But anyway, the soldiers that are there, they choose to be there. And the parents, when the child is killed, as horrible as it is, a lot of the parents have a sense of pride. And they say, you know what? He died serving the country. He died doing what he wanted to do. I would give anything to have him or her back. But they have at least a clear conscience with that. But there is some, and the loss is still painful. I'm not saying it's easy, because it's not. At all. But then there are some who just can't take it. And I can understand that. And Cindy Sheehan was one. And the Democrats moved in and preyed on this woman. They preyed on Cindy Sheehan. And she got unhinged and lost her mind. So unhinged became Cindy Sheehan that I little search for where is Cindy Sheehan now. In 2013, she pretty much brought into her own press, and she ran for the Socialist Party as the running mate for Roseanne Barr. Roseanne Barr. If there was one person, if there was one celebrity you could point to and say they're absolutely batshit crazy, that would be Roseanne Barr. This woman is absolutely off her rocker. She is gone. And Cindy Sheehan was right there running as her running mate for the Socialist Party in 2013. Makes no sense. And then here's the funny part. Well, in 2014, Cindy Sheehan, little article right here. This is Newsmax. Okay? 2014, Newsmax. Cindy Sheehan says that, quote, "We have a Democratic president who is actually bombing more countries than Bush did," Sheehan said. "Our history has shown that Democrats aren't much better when it comes to war than Republicans are, and in some cases, they're worse." Quote, "It didn't take him," Obama, meaning Obama, "it didn't take him very long to become a presidential war criminal." That's in 2014 on Newsmax. Where was that? This is their poster child. This was their Cindy Sheehan that they used so much and paraded out there when it served their purposes. Where was this story? I never even heard of it. No, because she's buried now. Newsmax had to pick it up, and it's kind of a little side article, and it's done. Go on. So where is she? Well, Democrats had their use of her. Now they're done with her. They got rid of her. She's kicked to the side. She served her purpose. They made her absolutely go crazy, and they're done with her. Guess what? They're doing the same thing with Khazir Khan. They're using Khan just like they used Cindy Sheehan. They are milking him for everything. They're going to play on his grief, and they're going to keep prodding him, and they're going to parade him out on all the Sunday shows. Oh, you know, they're loving it, and the propaganda media, the DNC propaganda media, they're like, yeah, we got to get Khan in here because he's really powerful. We want to use him. You know, it's really important this time of, we got this election. We got to get him because he's a powerful voice against Trump, and we got to really use him as much as possible. What happens when we're done with him? Oh, don't worry about him when we're done. We'll just cast him aside. As long as he has usefulness to us, we're going to use him. But once we're done, we're good. I don't care about your kid dying. And it's the truth. The Democrats don't care. The liberals don't care. The media doesn't care. They could care less. Your liberal media does not care about soldiers that die. They don't tell those stories. All they did during the Iraq War, after 2003, it was a body count. Remember that? Every time you turn on the TV, it was a body count. Another 25 more soldiers died today. Another 2 soldiers died today. It was like a tally board. I felt like I was watching a Jerry Lewis telethon. Another died. Let's see the big tally board, Johnny. It was pathetic. But that's what they do. They love when soldiers die because they use that. They use that for their own. Now, of course, have we had the body count since Obama's been? No. You get the occasional story, usually on Fox. Regular news, they don't talk about that stuff. ABC, CBS, liberals? Nah. Not a word. No body count. A lot of soldiers have died under Obama. I believe more so than under Bush. I'm not sure about those numbers, but you got to check them out. Regardless, do we have a count? No. We don't have a daily count of soldiers that die. Why? Oh, because there's a Democrat in office. Oh, that's right. That's right. Now we love the troops. We love the troops now. No, you don't. Don't lie. You don't love us. You care less about us. If we die tomorrow, you can care less. The only reason you care about us if we die is if you can use the grieving parents to spiel your BS during your DNC or get in front of the media and rant and rave and push forward your talking points. You're disgraceful. You're scumbags. This is what liberals, this is what Democrats do. They use people. They use the blacks and Black Lives Matter. They use that. Notice how that kind of settled down just a bit ever since once the guy went crazy and shot all those cops in Dallas. The Black Lives Matter thing kind of toned down a bit because public sentiment started to flip. So they wanted to drive the cause of Black Lives Matter galore. We got to support Black Lives Matter. That's important. It's important. And racism. And then all of a sudden, a guy shoots all these cops. He's a black guy. And he shot these cops. Uh-oh. Public sentiment has flipped. Okay, you know what? We got to move on to our next one. We got to flip that. Let's go with the Muslim thing. We got Khazir Khan. Let's go crazy. They had nothing to say positive about the military during their convention. Nothing. And the one person who went up there, I think it was the general, went up there and started talking about the military, and there were no more war, and they're booing her. And are you really? The only reason Democrats want no war, your liberal kooks, the only reason they want no war is because it inconveniences them, and they worry about everybody else, but they don't care about our troops or our country. It inconveniences them, primarily. They have to worry about it today. I wake up and, it's terrible. This is war, and these innocent people are dying around the world. And do you care about our innocent people that died? Well, no, not really. I only care about the innocent people that I've never met before who are in my country. I see. So everyone else is more important than you are, or than we are. And it also inconveniences you because you have to worry. It's like them in environmentalism. They don't care about the environment as a whole. In the abstract, they could care less about the environment. They care about their own little backyard, their own little space, their own habitat. They walk out of their backyard, and as long as they can go to a stream and it looks clean, and their streets look clean, and their backyard is clean, and their air is clean around them, and where they go on their daily routine, they're fine. They don't care what China and India are doing and destroying our environment like crazy and pumping pollution into the air. They can care less about other countries. All they care about is their own little backyard, and then they want to make fun of it. They bust the United States for doing that, thinking then that's going to fix it. Liberals are hypocrites. They hate the military, but they parade them around like they're puppets. This is what they're doing. So, They're using Khan. They're using Khazir Khan as another puppet. This guy, this grieving father, right? He and his wife, and they put them on stage. I guarantee you they wrote his speech. I guarantee you they wrote his speech. This guy is a lawyer, all right? I think he's a lawyer, I believe. Yeah, he's a lawyer. If he's a lawyer, he's going to speak a lot more clearly in front of people than he did during the convention. But he wasn't as fluid as he probably should have been. Now, he could have been nervous, but I think he was reading script that the Democrats wrote for him, and he may not have had a lot of time to practice. I wouldn't put it past him. This is what Democrats do. They go, you're going to get out there, and we're going to write this for you. Here we go. Yeah, we're going to write this. You read it. Yeah, you got to see. You're doing a good thing, man. You're doing a good thing. And they go out there and use him. So now they're parading him around on all the news shows, and he's being used and abused, and they're going to cast him aside, and they're not going to care about him, and they don't care about his kid dying. If they cared about the death of soldiers, then they wouldn't have put down. Chris Matthews put down the mother of one of the fallen soldiers in Benghazi. She comes out there and talks, and he said right at the RNC during the convention, he said, who cares what she has to say? Yeah, it's right there online. You can look it up. Chris Matthews on MSNBC said, who cares what she has to say? Oh, but she's a mother of a fallen soldier. I thought that would make a difference. Oh, it only makes a difference if you're going after Democrats. Then they don't want to hear it. But if you're going after Republicans, we got to get the few. There's one or two. There's one or two that don't like the Republicans, so we got to get them. And we're going to parade them and use them if they allow themselves to be used. And Khan's being paid. Don't think he's not being compensated for this. Yes, he is. He's being well compensated for this by the DNC. If you think he's not, then you're living in La La Land, because this is how it works. They find a person, they use them, they give them money or give them accommodations and real nice and all niceties, and they get them. They get paid to go on talk shows too. They come onto a Sunday show, they get paid for that too. So they get a little check, and they can say, "Oh, we can use it for our son. Set up a fund for our son. We can use it for our fund. Whatever we want to use it for, fine." But the fact of the matter is they're getting paid. And I'm not saying that Khan is wrong for doing it. He's just being, I mean, he is kind of wrong, but he's misguided more than anything else. I mean, you got to think about this. Khan is supporting a woman who voted for the war. She voted for the war in Iraq. She was a senator at the time. She voted. All the Democrats voted. Every single solitary one of them. So it was much her fault as it was anybody else's that it happened. But Obama's been president for 8 years. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State for 4. Why did his son die? Why are we still there? It should be gone. His son died in 2005, but why are we still there? It should be over. But we're still in war. Soldiers are still at war. So my first question would be, well, wait a minute. Why are you wanting me to talk when there are still soldiers fighting? Well, you have something to say. No, I'm not going to sit there and crap on my son's memory by using him as a political pawn. And that's what they're doing. They're using a soldier as a political pawn, a fallen soldier, and they're using his grieving parents once again, because they have an agenda, and that's all about winning the election so they can get Hillary in the White House, continue the next term of Obama, and put liberals on the Supreme Court to get rid of the Second Amendment and pass the Fairness Doctrine, and then help silence our speech. That's what they're planning on doing. Believe me. It's all part of the plan. But you don't fall for it. But people say, well, why are you going after Khan? Look, I'll go after Khan. Khan, see, there's a problem. This is the problem. You can play the grieving card on Khan. All right? We've established the fact, yes. Now, it was 11 years ago. You never stop grieving, but it was 11 years ago. It's not like his son died yesterday. He died 11 years ago. But the minute Khan took that stage at the DNC, the minute he took that stage, he entered the political arena. Now he is fair game. As despicable as it is for the Democrats to do that, they have injected him into the political arena. And then by parading him on the Sunday shows, he is now part of the game. That's it. He's in it. He may as well be a politician. But he's a deflection. And that's a big problem. He is merely a deflection. Much like the Democrats started talking about Russia once the DNC emails were hacked to deflect from the content of the emails. They didn't care about the content of their emails. They cared about, well, Russia did it, and the media ran with that. They ignored. Let's ignore the emails. We'll talk about Russia. Let's spin it. Let's flip it. Let's change the topic. Change the topic. Well, our job is to change it back. Republicans' job is to change it back. The topic is the content of the emails. That's the topic. That's the problem. Making fun of Bernie Sanders for being Jewish. Trying to lie, to tell people he's atheist, to make fun of his Judaism. Calling Latinos a taco bowl. A group of Latinos a taco bowl. To being racist. To buying off the press and having press, showing proof that the press is in their marching orders. Receives their marching orders from the DNC. Proof. We knew it all along. Now it's a fact. Now it's just sad. Before we were like, oh yeah, it's probably the case. Now we know, and now it's sad. It's pathetic. That's the story. Khan's not the story. Khan is a deflection. The story is Hillary Clinton. She's garbage. She's disgraceful. She hates the military. She treats them with disdain. She did it while she was the first lady. There's story upon story about that from former Secret Service agents. She wouldn't allow them to wear their uniforms in the White House because she disrespected them so much. The story is Hillary Clinton and how much of a disaster she was. And that was getting a lot of traction. And then Khan comes up. Just deflection. It'll pass. It'll pass. He'll run, the story will run its course, and it's not going to carry any weight. It's not. It seems like it's carrying weight right now, but it's not. It's just going to go bye-bye, just like Cindy Sheehan did. She didn't carry much weight either. There were other issues. It was the economy. They had to use the economy because the Cindy Sheehan wasn't working. Because the majority of the people in this country understand. The majority of these people support the troops, and they understand what Democrats are about. So this will pass. So Cindy Sheehan was the use, and again, they had to flip it to the economy. And that was their next ploy. Oh, you use the economy now. We don't want to get into that one. That's a whole nother discussion. But there you have it. Khazir Khan is being used by the Democrats. And for a smart man, he should know better. But they're playing on his grief. They're playing on his pain. They're using him as much as possible because it serves their purposes. And like with every other minority or every other group, they will cast him aside when they're done with him. Just like they do with Black Americans, Latino Americans, gays, whoever. When they're done with you, they cast you aside as long as they get their votes. Okay, well, that's a little longer than I wanted to talk today, but that's what I have to say. So until next time, maybe later today, maybe tomorrow, enjoy your day. This is New Independence Network, and I'll talk to you later.